Here are 3 tips for students to help them with the extended constructed response portion of the new STAAR test. Angela here from Custom Classroom, helping make test prep simple. The first step for students is to know the rubric. I recommend clicking on the link in the description to read over a detailed example of exactly what the graders are looking for on the STAAR rubric. To break it down for you, there's 5 total points that you can score. 3 of the points are going to come from your organization and development of ideas. So basically, they're looking for a very clear and developed controlling idea, and this controlling idea answers the specific question. They're looking at your organization to make sure that you're using introduction, conclusion, transition words, and your thoughts kind of flow together. That there's plenty of evidence that's not only directly stated from the text, but also is relevant and explained. And finally, they're looking at your word choice to see if you're very clear and effective in how you communicate your overall answer and controlling idea. The second part is 2 points from conventions. So here it's looking at if you are able to consistently command things like sentence structure, punctuation, capitalization, grammar, and spelling. In this case, you get all 2 points. If it's inconsistent, you get 1 point, and if there's little to no command, you're going to get 0 points. The second tip is to read samples. So I put a link in the description to TEA student samples that they released, and these are very educational and helpful in getting a good idea of what's being looked for. So for example, one of the samples is about this prompt: explain how the author develops the idea in the article that it is not easy to become a NASA astronaut. And here's an example of what a 0 looks like versus what a 5 looks like. So the 0 states, if you want to be an astronaut, it is going to be really hard to go to space. If I want to turn into an astronaut, I would first learn or study about it so I can know what to do or learn facts about going into space to be an astronaut. So here you can see the answer is not very clearly stated. There's a bunch of errors, and it's pretty hard to follow their controlling idea. Now here's an example of what a 5 looks like. Being an astronaut is not an easy task. You have to go through lots of training to get into the NASA program. And even if you get through all the training, there is not a high chance that you will make it into the program. For example, in 2017, there was about 18,000 applicants for getting selected into NASA's new astronaut class. But only 12 people out of the 18,000 were selected for that class. And even after you make it into the NASA program, you have to go through harsh training before you get to go on your first mission. Though lots of training has to do with problems and issues you face when you are on missions. Even a current astronaut said it himself. Arnold says that much of his training focused on preparing for problems that might come up in space. Or paragraph 10. And NASA relies on Russian spacecrafts to get the crews to and from the ISS. This is why you also have to study the Russian language, which astronauts spend long periods of time in Russian facilities. A difficult task that astronauts aboard the ISS face is going outside the station to do repairs. This is why they practice this in the buoyancy lab in Houston. It is the largest indoor pool in the world, and the conditions there are close to those in space when you dive in astronaut spacesuits. This is why becoming an astronaut is not easy, and even after you become an astronaut, you have to go through lots of harsh training after. And this is why becoming an astronaut is a difficult process. So here you can see that they are much more thorough in developing their controlling idea of it being a difficult task, but also very specific, using exact things from the text. And you can just tell this because of all the detail that's included in this answer. The third tip is to have a plan, like the RACER plan. Now, this is not the only strategy out there. There are a ton more great ones out there, and you should listen to your teachers and the specific strategy they're teaching to you. If you're looking for a strategy, an alternate strategy, you could use the RACER strategy. Now here, when you're making your plan, I want you to first think about your introduction. that you're restating the question and that you've answered the question very clearly, stating your controlling idea so that they know exactly what your answer is to the question. Then when you move on to planning your body, it's extremely important in here that you're using cited, that means literally taken out of the text, relevant evidence that supports this idea that you've formed as your answer, and that you clearly explain how this evidence directly supports this controlling idea. And so these two parts are very important as you're defending your answer in the body. And then in your conclusion, it's important to reword that controlling idea so you can kind of wrap it all up in a nice, neat package. Then the final step here is to go back in the revision portion where you're going to reread your text. And here I like to include a little rubric checklist. So for example, after you've read over, you want to make sure, did you 100% detail and explain your controlling idea? Did you include an introduction and conclusion? Did you use some transition words as you flow through your ideas in the body? Do you support your evidence and clearly explain it? And are your ideas and your words as you're writing, are they clear and easy to follow? And are there any errors that you can correct along the way so it's easier for your reader to understand what you're trying to communicate? If you'd like to learn more about the new STAAR test, check out some of my other videos.